Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. It is a Monday. Happy Monday to everybody. Happy President's Day as well. Hopefully, some of you have the day off and have a chance to watch us as we are going to start breaking down the free agency options for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have the combine coming up next week. So next week will be very draft heavy. But this week, we're going to talk a lot about the free agents, starting today with the safeties. Now, of course, on defense overall, the Bucs are going to look to revamp that whole side of the football, but we'll kind of work our way backwards, starting with the safeties. And of course, we'll get into any questions, comments, super chats that you, the Pewter people, have. I'm your host, Matt Matera, joined with me, my fellow colleague at PewterReport.com. You may have seen him from time to time on the Pewter Game Day show on a live Bucs mock draft that aired yesterday. It is my main man, Josh Capo. Josh, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. How we doing?
Matt, I am wonderful. It's nice to have a President's Day weekend off, the long weekend. My kids, they've created a February break now. I didn't have this as a kid. I don't know if you did, but my kids were off Thursday, Friday, and today, almost like a spring break. So been nice getting to spend some extra time with them.
Awesome. Yeah, family time is always great, always important. And I think next year, now hopefully the Bucs are playing in it, but next year I think they're trying to base the Super Bowl around President's Day, so everybody can, obviously, millions watch Super Bowl Sunday anyway, but then you have that off day with President's Day the next day. And I'm not a political guy by any means, but I've always said if I were to run for office at any level, my campaign would be get Monday off for the Super Bowl. That would be pretty much my only thing. It's like taxes. Well, what if I told you you got off the day after the Super Bowl? I think I'd win by unanimous vote. But anyway.
I think you would. You would get my vote. It's funny because I think I saw something saying like a record number of people called in sick or called off sick the day after the Super Bowl last week. So it just seems like the business community would get behind your campaign because they're losing productivity by just not having it centered around some type of holiday. So yeah, it makes a ton of sense to me.
I appreciate that for sure. Very excited to get into the topics all week long with the free agency, who best fits for the Bucs, what type of personnel are they looking for specifically. So we will start with the safeties today, but we do have a super chat right off the bat. Came earlier in the day. And of course, we'll have roll call coming up at 4:20 in a little bit. But you know our rule. If you super chat us, we are happy to get to it ASAP. So starting off with the Redfish from earlier today, he was ready to go because this is at 11:30, but it's because he's not able to listen when we are on right now. So thank you, Redfish, for the $4.99 super chat when you get a chance to listen to the show. Can't listen live, but wanted to ask how we believe we are in a Super Bowl window while also having so many defensive holes to fill. How do these go together?
Yeah,
Josh, I think your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think the very first thing I'll kind of speak to is the volatility defense. And I think you look no further than this year's Super Bowl champion. The Philadelphia Eagles were 26th in total defense last year in 2023. So they were a bottom 7 team if you measure it by yards per game, and if you measure it by like EPA per play, they were a little bit better than that, but still like a bottom 12, bottom 13 team. So I think that really goes to show you that there's a lot of volatility and that defenses can often see huge swings year to year. And also that it's a position group that can typically be patched up pretty quickly. I think Super Bowl windows can often be defined by how good your offense is. The offenses tend to create the window, and then defense tends to shut it for in terms of getting you over the hump. And so I think the Bucs offense has certainly created that opening. You can also look at the fact that the Bucs are getting better in terms of cap. They have avenues to create basically any amount of cap that they need to make any amount of moves that they want to this year. And from a cash spending standpoint, and this is just my own projection or budget for them, but I think the Bucs have, from where they are committed to right now, somewhere around $96 million in cash that they're probably going to spend, that they have the room to spend for this season. So when you add all of that up and you look at the defense still has a solid core, I think that it's reasonable to say that this is a Super Bowl window, especially when you compare it to the fact that the NFC South is still not one of the better divisions in football. It's probably getting a little bit better. Matt, I know you just wrote about, some people think that maybe the Bucs window is closed because the NFC South is getting better.
Yeah, there was an article on ESPN. It was kind of like a roundtable, which, by the way, our Pewter Report roundtable will be out tomorrow. But it's essentially a roundtable of a number of people from ESPN. I believe it was like anywhere from 12 to 15 total. And, they gave their predictions and answers to certain questions, early predictions for 2025, whether it was who's playing in the Super Bowl, who's going to win the MVP. Among those questions was which team will take a step back next season. And two experts or reporters on ESPN picked the Bucs to take a step back. And I'm still of the belief that the Bucs Super Bowl window is very much open, and it's very much capable that they can make a run next season. And their reasonings for it not being open, or at least them taking a step back, Josh Grizzard has a lot to do with it, with being a first-time play caller. But again, I would argue that Grizzard being here last year certainly helped. So there's still going to be the continuity of the offense that was on this team last year. He knows what he has. And also, the Bucs were able to get to the second round of the playoffs with the first-time play caller in Dave Canales. And I think it's very fair to say that the offense, in the 4 years that the Bucs have, had a new offensive play caller and with their personnel, they have not been in a better spot than going into this season, just based on the level that Baker Mayfield's playing at, Mike Evans being under contract for next season, how the offensive line took major steps forward. The running game was the best it ever was in a decade. So, yeah, they still need to figure out the defensive side. But at the end of the day, I think what's very important, too, is that you have core pieces on the defense as well. Yes, you need to replenish a lot of different spots, but you still have Vita Vea and Kalijah Cansey, who did a lot of damage for this team. Antoine Winfield Jr. should be healthy. So for all of the negativity around the Bucs defense, and it's certainly warranted with why the Bucs failed to go further into the postseason this year than they did a season ago, there are at least some things you can point to and say, okay, this works, this doesn't work, here's what we need to fix. It's not a question mark of like, how will this player respond or how will this player bounce back? It's like, this guy's good, he's not. That's what we're replacing. And that's why, and also with the article, they expected a lot from the Panthers going into next season. I just don't know if the Panthers have the talent. Actually, I don't think they have the talent just yet. They have the great motivator of Dave Canales. And the Falcons, it's a big question with Michael Penix. For every Jaden Daniels, there's also the slow progression of, Caleb Williams. And I'm not saying Caleb Williams won't be good. I'm just saying, like, if Michael Penix has a slow start, that sets the Falcons back at least a season and keeps that window open for the Bucs.
Yep. Yeah, I think those are excellent points, and I'll take it a little bit broader, and I want to pose the question to you, Matt. If you look across the NFC, how many teams do you honestly feel like, as it stands right now, are clearly in a better tier than the Bucs? I'm interested to see how many you've got, because I know my number.
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, you got to say the Eagles. They just won the Super Bowl. I still put Detroit up there. I know they lost a lot of their coaches and everything like that. I really think the Bucs are on the same playing field as the Commanders, and the Commanders kind of had somewhat of like a rental defense. Like Jeremy Chin
Yep.
is a free agent. Bobby Wagner's kind of in the same boat of Levante David of like how much longer will they keep playing for? Yes, they have some nice rookie pieces with Sam Still and Johnny Newton on the defensive line, Sam Still in the secondary. But outside of like Jaden Daniels being an absolute stud, I don't think the Commanders are head and shoulder above.
1,000% agree with you.
Now, if the Commanders get T. Higgins or, clearly upgrade their wide receiver room, obviously they have a great one already with Terry McLaurin. But right now, I put the Bucs and the Commanders on the same playing field. The Rams are such an interesting case to me specifically because, yeah, you got Puka, which is great, but like how much longer is Matt Stafford going to play for? But their offensive line, their defense. Again, I would put the Bucs in the same category as the Rams. So I guess as I'm saying this out loud, to me, it's really just the Eagles and the Lions that are in a tier above the Bucs, and the Vikings are kind of a wild card based on what's going to happen with their quarterback situation. But those are the top two teams that I'm thinking of. Maybe I'm missing another, but those two for sure.
Yeah, my number's 4, so I have the same 2 as you. I would add the Vikings and I would add the Packers because I just believe in their play callers quite a bit, as well as where their rosters are. So the Bucs I've got with I think you made some fantastic points about the Commanders. Then San Francisco I actually think's on a downslide. I've got the Rams in that same tier, maybe even the Seahawks kind of at the bottom part of that tier, but if you look at it, that puts the Bucs at the team like 5-7, and then you look a little bit further behind that, and you could even drop the Vikings into this tier. I could entertain that argument because they don't know what they're doing at quarterback, right? They haven't re-signed Sam Darnold. Maybe they go with McCarthy, whoever they go with. Kevin O'Connell certainly proven that he can get a lot out of his quarterbacks, but then you look at they've got the Bucs have their quarterback's position figured out. They've got the cap room to adjust. They've got a really good core. So, yes, obviously the Grizzard piece is a huge, huge unknown. But if you're Jason Light and Mike Greenberg, you're sitting there going, from a roster standpoint, this place, we're very much in a good place in terms of that core. We can build around it. We can complement it through the draft, through free agency. And and you're getting into a healthier cap position. That is a window to go for it when you're sitting there and saying we're probably somewhere between the 5th and the 8th best team in the NFC. 7 teams go to the playoffs, and then you're it's how you match up against each individual opponent. And you're playing in, again, a division that's still very much unknown, if it's moving out of the trash territory that it's been in the last few years, it's still in the very much the unknown. Yes, Atlanta could take a step forward. Yes, Carolina could take a step forward. Everybody believes, myself included, that New Orleans is going to continue to take steps back before they go forward. So those are all the reasons why I would say, they are in a playoff / Super Bowl window where right now you would want to make moves to maximize next year's win percentage.
No doubt about it. And I think we've seen, like someone had mentioned the 49ers, Wesley Sullivan did right there. On the one hand, it's like the 49ers have been pretty consistent during the Shanahan run and John Lynch being their GM. And, last season was really the first time that they took that big step back. But for them, Brock Purdy's about to get a good amount of money, we think. I mean, you never know what will happen. Looks like Debo might get traded. You had some injuries. You have some older guys as well. Even look at the Lions. The Lions went to the NFC Championship game 2 seasons ago. They didn't go to the NFC Championship game this season. You never know what's going to happen from year to year. That's why you can't wait too long to, go all in. As the famous song goes, I don't want to wait for my Super Bowl to be over. But so that's why it's important for the Bucs to, again, you don't have to go the Rams approach of F them picks and everything like that. But at the same time, you never know what will happen. So I think the 49ers may continue to take that step back. And also, who's going to be the Commanders of next season? There's always that team on each side that was bad this year and then is somehow, either great or just got to be taken seriously the next season. The Broncos are a good example on the AFC side, and the Commanders were that example. I don't necessarily know if it's the Panthers, but every year it's like, who's your dark horse team to make a playoff run, or who's your dark horse team to reach the postseason? I potentially could see some people taking the Panthers based on like how they were in every game at the end of the year.
Right.
A lot of that rides on Bryce Young specifically, but I don't know if the Panthers are there just yet. I think they need like 2 more seasons before they're truly a horse in the race against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'd bet on Chicago before I bet on Carolina to make that step forward. They've got a lot of pieces kind of in place ready to kind of be driven forward. So, but I guess that brings us to today's topic. And if the Bucs are in a Super Bowl window, what's it going to take to get them over the hump, right?
That is correct. We got a lot of people on the list. Some of the big names, of course, Hufanga, which was on the cover of this topic as well, for sure. We'll talk about him. But Josh, you have a couple of names as well. There's going to be an article about it on pewterreport.com coming out tomorrow too, about maybe not some household names, but certain guys that should be on the radar of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just based on trying to make it work with the salary cap and everything like that. But before you get into that list, we're going to combine a couple of things here and there because it is 420 and it is a Monday show. And as you know, on Monday, it's time for Roll Call. We do this every Monday show at 420 where one of us goes on a conversation about the Buccaneers. Today will be Josh and some of the other safety options for Tampa Bay. And in the meantime, we have so many great fans from all across the world, and we love interacting with you guys as much as we possibly can. So if you want to put on the screen where you're watching from, we will give it a shout out as well on the show. A couple specific ones like Tom Bucs fan from Crossville, Tennessee. So Josh, whenever you're ready, let's hear about some potential safety candidates for the Bucs.
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing with safety is that each year it just seems to be a position group where there's more supply than demand, and there are talented and or interesting players that are still left kind of out, where they end up with deals that are maybe less than what you would have expected for somebody with their name recognition or talent to get. Last year, I think it was Jesse Bates. No, it wasn't Bates. It was Justin Simmons, who signed very late with Atlanta. And that was after Denver surprisingly kind of let him go. There were other names that were out there late. And this year, it's again, there's a solid list. Top of the market is obviously Javon Holland. That second tier kind of level is Cameron Bynum, Justin Reed, Talanoa Hufanga, who, like you said, was on our tab there. Trayvon Merrig is somebody who I think a lot of people maybe don't think about, but he's been fantastic for the Raiders. I don't know if they actually let him go because who else are they really paying? Justin Blackmon for the Colts, I think, is an interesting name, and it does seem like Indy's going to let him test the market. So, and then Jeremy Chin obviously kind of had a great bounce back season there, kind of a prove it deal with the Commanders, but the list continues on well beyond that top tier. Jordan Fuller from the Panthers had a fairly solid season. Jason Pinnock with the Giants had a down year after a really good 2023. Elijah Molden, Andre Sisco, these are guys who are really interesting names, maybe not completely do-it-all safeties, but certainly can play very effective in different roles. And that kind of brings me to an overarching point that I would love to bring up. And I've been seeing this on some of the articles I've been writing recently in the comments, where I'm trying to expose Bucs fans to those non-household names. My thought process is, we know the Javon Hollands, we know the Cameron Bynums, those types of guys, the Hufangas, they're well known, but you can't expect the Bucs to go out and just get a mercenary team, right? We've all kind of discussed what are those 4 big needs on defense. Can the Bucs find that premier edge rusher, that alpha that really allows Yaya Diaby to be phenomenal in a number 2 role? The needs at the linebacker room, the fact that they didn't get great play out of the safety position since Jordan Whitehead was with the Bucs the first time. And then obviously cornerback with Jamel Dean's injury concerns, as well as the lack of quality play behind him. Bucs fans should not expect the Bucs to go out and get a premier player at all 4 of these positions. It's not a sustainable way of building a team, and it's rarely an effective way. I remember the early 2010 Eagles with when Michael Vick was making his comeback, right? And it was his backup, the kid from Tennessee, who played at Tennessee. I can't remember it, but he said this is the super team, right? Like we've got stars at every single position, and then the Eagles massively underperformed, right? Now you compare that to this past Eagles team just last year. Do you remember any premier free agents that the Eagles went out and got last year?
Devin White. Oh, you know what? I should have said that. It's his birthday today. Oh, that's so mean of me. Because it's Michael Jordan's birthday, and Devin also has the same birthday. Happy birthday, Devin White. I'm sorry.
Happy birthday to Devin. Yes. But yeah, they did not go out and get any premier. I mean, people might say Zach Bond, but Zach Bond this time last year.
He made a name for himself.
Exactly. And Zach Bond had a very similar season as one that Bucs fans know really well, Shaq Barrett in 2019. An unheralded, low-key, kind of under-the-radar value signing, and the guy blew up, right? So I'm not saying that the Bucs shouldn't spend any money. I'm not saying that they should go with these low-key signings at every position. It should be 1 to 2 big splashes with, several of those kind of low-key, under-the-radar signings, low-risk, potential upside to go with it. And so I'm trying to feature those in some of these articles. I did Tyrel Dotson. I think it came out yesterday. He's a linebacker. He was with Seattle and Miami last year. Wouldn't cost a ton of money, but there's a lot of upside. And I think he plays he can play a very interesting role or an effective role in a Todd Bowles defense. And so that's where you're seeing some of these articles. And I'll have another one on one of the safeties we talk about today. And I think safety is an especially important position for that because the Bucs have already sunk $21 million a year on one side of the safety position, and that's with Antoine Winfield Jr. I really don't see them making a significant investment at 2 positions that play so far away from the line of scrimmage. So my best guesstimate is that at the safety position, we can talk about the higher end guys, but I really think that the Bucs will look to find value at that safety position, either through the draft or more likely with some of the plethora of guys who are available for $2.5 to $6 million a year at safety.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with everything that you said. I mean, you can't just, and I said this on the other show, like you can't just spend like drunken sailors and expect every single one to be a hit. We see teams do it every single year, and it just doesn't work out. So the best case scenario for the Bucs is a couple of splash signings if they can afford it and it's the right move. Don't just do it. And Jason Light knows this. He's obviously one of the best GMs in the league. He knows not to just be like, oh my God, we have to have this one guy because like he had one great season and that type of thing. And free agency is always a risk. I mean, sure, the draft is a risk as well, but that's why I think part of the reason why the Bucs have been so good for the last 5 years is, I mean, some of their biggest signings have just been re-signings of the guys that have already been in-house and have been proven commodities. And when we talk about the safety position as well, I think it's important, and you mentioned Antoine Winfield Jr., I think it's important to kind of look at what they have right now. And the big question going into this offseason, because we know, Winfield's under contract with the extension. The big thing for him is just be healthy and stay healthy. That's pretty much the big thing for Antoine Winfield Jr. But there's a big question about Jordan Whitehead. He's on the last year of his deal, but there's no guaranteed money. Suffered a couple of injuries last year, including that devastating car accident, which put him out for the rest of the season, dealing with some vertebrae fractures. We don't know what his condition is going to be like going into next season. So in your mind, Josh, is Jordan Whitehead, like, when you're looking at the Bucs offseason and roster construction, in your mind, like, is Jordan Whitehead still on this team? And if he's not, then that opens up a question for Tyke Smith as well, because he is in the slot, but you could move him to safety and then try to find someone else in the nickel or go Christian Izzy. So what are your thoughts on that type of situation?
Yeah, I don't think Jordan Whitehead necessarily brought the level of play the Bucs were hoping that he would bring last year. Certainly not the level that he brought during his rookie deal with the Bucs. And then you add in the fact that it's a neck injury from the car accident. I don't think that the Bucs exercise his option and keep him around for 2025, at least not at the pay rate that he was set to get. Maybe they work out some type of redone deal where they, and I'm trying to think, it's $4.5 million is what the Bucs would owe him in terms of cash for this upcoming year. And I think that's actually his cap hit as well. It is. So either they rework a deal where he agrees to take less money, but more likely than not, I think the Bucs move on from Jordan Whitehead and continue to try and find a reliable player to be opposite Antoine Winfield Jr. in 2025.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if he was fully healthy and the car accident didn't happen, I would be open to, giving him another opportunity next season, because sometimes, things may not work out in the first year, but then the act gets together in the second season. But because of his status and he might not even be available, it's a little too risky. So yeah, kind of leaning towards not having Jordan Whitehead back next season, which opens up another roster spot for a lot of these available free agent safeties. So let's get into a couple of these players that maybe are a Buck, maybe not. Let's start with the guy that was on the title today, Talanoa Hufanga, dealing with an injury history over the last 2 years, which I believe was caused by Rachaad White when they played out in San Francisco. He juked Hufanga, and unfortunately, he tore his ACL. So he played in 10 games in 2023, and last year didn't become available until week 3. Played one game, then was inactive. Played in week 5, and then missed several weeks before closing out the season, returning in week 13. So he is still considered like one of the top free agent safeties available, but obviously, ACL injuries suck. They're not really predictable or anything like that. When he's been available, he's been a pretty damn good safety. His PFF grades weren't fantastic, but again, when you take into the thought of he's coming back from an ACL injury, only played a handful of games, this is an interesting case just in general, even if he's not with the Bucs, just in general, Hufanga, what type of market he would have, just given his history over the last 2 years.
Yeah, and because of that injury concern, he's probably going to be available for a shorter deal. I've got him probably doing a 2-year deal for about $11 million a year, which isn't like cheap, but it's not super significant money either, especially when you talk about the shorter term. The thing with Hufanga is he comes from such a different system than what the Bucs run. Coming from San Francisco, they just reunited with Robert Saleh. They've been running Saleh's system since before he left. And Hufanga has been kind of their box safety, but they basically run 4 down and go almost exclusively. As a matter of fact, over his, 4 years in the NFL, I want to say he has he's got 76 reps where he actually rushed the passer. That doesn't exactly sound like, a great fit for a Todd Bowles defense, where he wants the versatility to play guys in the box, play him at slot, play him up top, and move him around and rotate him and do all sorts of things with him. So I'm not sure if Hufanga, he's not the best pass rusher in the world. He certainly is, a very sure tackler, only a career 12.4% missed tackle rate, 8.6% in 2023. He obviously brings a lot of punch in terms of how he hits. So there's a similarity there between him and Whitehead. He's a solid coverage player, or at least he was before the knee injury, but I don't know if there's this awesome fit for him in the Bucs system, and he's going to want to be very discerning in terms of the team he goes to rebuild his value. And I think that he's going to look for a team that can maximize his talents. And I don't know if there's going to be this great fit between him and the Bucs when you consider everything, the fit with the team, the fact that he's going to want to maximize his value, and then the price tag.
No, I think those are some fantastic points, especially because it may have to be that 1 year prove it deal. Like, you have to make sure it's right, because the NFL can be so fickle. On 1 second you're on top, but if you have a down season in a 1 year prove it deal, well, then, you may end up playing for the vet minimum the next year, or not even be in the league, or being just a training camp invite versus just a contract itself. So,
and especially at that position.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I think that's one of the biggest things as well is some guys, free agency doesn't work for them because they just say, screw it. They're giving me the most money. Hell yeah, that's where I'm going. But then it's like, well, okay, you're predominantly better in a 3-4 and this defense plays a 4-3. I'm not talking about safety in general. I'm just talking about like any position on defense, or vice versa. This is a run heavy offense and I'm a number one wide receiver. Why am I going to a run heavy team, et cetera, et cetera? So it's important for him to find where he can best flourish as a safety. But Zach Brannigan, a Pewter Report YouTube channel member, brings up a good point. So who is the awesome fit for safety on the Bucs that's a free agent?
Well, awesome has so many variations that you could take with it. If you're saying they're they're just going to spend whatever they need to get the best possible safety. Javon Holland is 100% the guy that I would go after. Yeah. But he's going to cost $20 million a year. And again, they're already paying Antoine Winfield Jr. $20 million a year. But Holland would be phenomenal in this Bucs defense because he is that kind of do-it-all guy. He can play well up top. I still remember, and I don't know if you do as well, Matt, I want to say it was a Thursday night game 2 or 3 years ago where it was the Dolphins playing the Ravens. And they basically, and I want to say it was Flores was still the head coach at the time. I could be wrong about that. But he basically just put Holland up in the A gap every single snap and just blitzed him like crazy against Lamar. And he just continually got into the backfield, continually caused Lamar all sorts of issues, and just wreaked havoc. And it was kind of his coming out party. I want to say it was his rookie season, if I remember correctly. But Holland's kind of that do-it-all guy. And 2023 was his best season for whatever people think of Pro Football Focus. They gave him a 90.4 overall grade, an 89.9 coverage grade. That year, he only allowed 240 yards receiving in over 430 coverage snaps, which is an absolutely incredible rate. And he has 6 career interceptions and 16 career pass breakups. So he's somebody and who would be able to, because then you would have 2 chess pieces between him and Antoine Winfield Jr. And even with Tyke Smith, and you could move the 3 of them around and do so much stuff. It would push Todd Bowles' creativity to the next level. That would be the most awesome fit. But there's 31 other teams that would look at Javon Holland in the exact same light. And again, a lot of them are not already paying $20 million a year for a safety. So I don't know if he's a realistic fit, if we're being completely honest. So, but I do absolutely think he would be the best fit.
So what you're saying is, in a perfect world, he would be great on the Buccaneers defense. But realistically, based on who the Bucs are paying, who else they need to bring onto this team, as great as of a fit he is, they're not going to pay big money for a big-time safety because they're already paying big money for a big-time safety, Antoine Winfield Jr.
Right. That's exactly it. So then kind of moving off of him, one that I think is really interesting would be like somebody like Julian Blackmon, who still would be fairly expensive, around $12.5 million per year is kind of where I have him projected at. But he's more of like a true free safety, which would then allow the Bucs to move and Todd Bowles to move Antoine Winfield Jr. around more, because Blackman can play a very good kind of 2 high or even a single high, way off the ball center field type position. And that would allow, and Antoine Winfield Jr. is just so good near the line of scrimmage, even though he's an excellent free safety. And that's the thing with Winfield. He's excellent at just about everything when he's healthy. Blackman would give the Bucs the freedom to move Winfield around, which I think is when the Bucs defense is at their best, is when Winfield is free to move around. So that would be a really interesting one. And then the one that I did the deep dive on just recently, and the article will be coming out tomorrow, would be a buy low candidate. And that would be like Jason Pinnock from the Giants. He's a former, I think he was a 5th round draft pick for the Jets. And they tried to sneak him onto their practice squad at the end of training camp his rookie year. And the Giants said, nope, we'll take him. We'll keep him on our 53-man roster. Over the next couple of years, he moved into the starting lineup, and in 2023 had his best season ever playing next to Xavier McKinney. The Giants got a new defensive coordinator last year, brought in a new system, and Pinnock wasn't exactly used to his best suits or
his
in a best. Exactly. Thank you. And he kind of suffered as such. And you know, for his next team, that will be a benefit because it means he comes cheaper in free agency. But Pinnock, the thing that I like about him is he plays downfield really well. He's great inside that 10 to 12 yards, just moving in a straight line. He's a very linear athlete, but he can get after the quarterback, get behind the line of scrimmage, create plays behind the line of scrimmage, which we know is something that works really well in a Todd Bowles defense. And then he can play well in the flats as like a sky defender, or even like 2 high or in quarters where he gets to keep the ball and the receiver in front of him and just pinch routes. So the Giants used him more in like a single high center field role, and that's not where he works best. At least last year. So Pinnock would be kind of an under the radar player that I would say could be on the Bucs on their radar, I guess.
Yeah.
Victim of my own syntax there. But he would be somebody who I think would be very interesting. Most people if it were to be announced would be like, who? And then he ends up having a really solid season, building some value for himself.
And I think that's what Tampa Bay needs really in a lot of spots on defense, but at safety, like knowing that you have Antoine Winfield Jr. and looks like Tyke Smith's going to be a playmaker as well. I mean, he was tied for the team lead with interceptions and fumbles, and I only think there's going to force fumbles, and there's only going to be more with, more playing experience and maybe even more playing time. I know he already played a good amount, but he missed a couple games too. You just need a guy to kind of hold the fort down, if you will. And that was part of the thought process of bringing Jordan Whitehead back, is when he was great for the team, it was playing close to the line of scrimmage, being in the box, making those big time tackles, and bring some physicality added on top of the better coverage skills that he got going to the Jets defense and what he learned there. But the pass coverage skills didn't really appear. Except for the Lions game in week 2. He did pretty good there, but it wasn't there the rest of the season. And there wasn't that same, jackhammer that he was being the physical guy for the Bucs in his first run with Tampa Bay. So maybe Pinnock can do that. One last thing about Blackman as well. Thought that was a really good find. The dude takes the ball away. He had 3 interceptions last year for the Colts, 4 in 2023. He has 10 career interceptions in 5 seasons, which obviously the Bucs are starving for interceptions, specifically from their secondary pieces. Also has 2 career forced fumbles. So a couple of options for sure. I will say, when it comes to having an energy drink, the only option is Celsius. Of course, Celsius is the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. We love Celsius for a number of reasons, including their fantastic flavors. The Arctic vibe is great. We also love the Playa vibe, or the Playa vibe. It's a pina colada flavor. Can't go wrong with the sparkling watermelon lemonade flavor as well. So if you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, maybe you're in a new location, maybe you're traveling, whatever the case may be. Just go to the Celsius store locator on their website, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest location where you can pick one up. Might be a Walmart, a Publix, a Stop and Shop, or potentially your bodega.
Bodega.
I like it. Nice spin. Little je ne sais quoi on the bodega. I don't even know if that's the right word, but whatever. I'm going with it.
Going with it.
And hey, live show. And after you go to your bodega and you know you love Celsius and you want more, you can buy it in bulk over on Amazon with the subscribe and save. Have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want, completely at your leisure. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drinks of pewterreport.com. We have a super chat to get to, but also want to give a shout out to all of our Pewter Platinum members, our YouTube channel members. We appreciate all of your support. So thank you to Scott Federico, Rathel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Eric McMillan, Zach Jarvis, Hezo813, Ash Fishpool, Joel L. Regan, Sam, John Dale Morris, and Zach Brannigan. Thank you all very, very much. Also, going to give a shout out to our Premier members. We'll let that play below. And also want to say what up to a couple of our roll call members that participated today. So, shout out to Bill Vincent, who's watching in Gulf Breeze, Florida. Jeff the Champ, New Bern, North Carolina. MSM, who says Los Gatos, California. Bat W, watching 72 miles from Raymond James Stadium. So
is that as the crow
crazy
flies, or is that like Google Maps? I'm interested to know, Bat W. Please let me know.
Yeah, not sure, but nonetheless, thank you everybody for your support. We appreciate that. And yes, the Pewter Premier members, we have a lot of you. We cannot thank you enough for all of your support. So we're going to let that play on the bottom there as we continue with the show. We also have a super chat to get to. Also, MSM Mia San Mia, I should have known by then. And Bat W says on my odometer. So there's your answer, Josh.
All right, appreciate it.
Let's see. Meets McGee with a $10 super chat. Thank you. Meets says, like to see them trade for Trey Hendrickson, sign a free agent corner and linebacker, draft Mello Dotson at the slot, and move Tyke Smith to safety. Do you see a more involved Trey Palmer with the offense going more vertical? Lots of guys there.
Yeah, I'll start with the Palmer. I'll kind of work backwards. So it's hard to say whether Palmer will have a big role in the offense next year. I think it was obvious just based on his lack of usage, even when there were opportunities when Chris Godwin and Mike Evans were both out, that he fell out of favor with the Bucs coaching staff last year. Whether that was solely with Liam Cohen or it included Josh Grizzard remains to be seen. But if he has an extended role or a larger role in the offense this upcoming year, he'll have to earn that in training camp would be my best guess there. But I think as of right now, Trey Palmer is probably fighting for a roster spot next year would be my best guess there. As far as like to see them trade for Trey Hendrickson, I love that idea. I actually wrote about it in our mock draft 2.0 this past week. First ever Pewter Report mock draft where we created a trade scenario.
Yeah.
And it was specifically for Hendrickson because I think he could be that difference maker. He would certainly be a very different edge rusher than the Bucs have pursued with Todd Bowles as their defensive coordinator and later head coach. But I think that he could be a difference maker that elevates everyone around him. Signing a free agent cornerback and I think the linebacker is 100% going to happen. I think signing a free agent corner is likely to happen. And a lot of that's going to depend on how the team sees Jamel Dean and whether they want to keep him and bet on him to play more next year. Not sure. Mello Dotson in the slot would be interesting. Just from a size profile, he's a little bigger than you would typically see for a slot receiver or a slot corner. And he hasn't played many snaps in the slot in his career, less than 30 for his entire collegiate career at Kansas. So that would be a very new position for him. And again, his size profile tends to lend itself more towards him being an outside corner. I do like, I haven't done a full dive into him, but I do like what I've seen from Mello Dotson. And I think that he could be somebody that the Bucs might target on day 2 of the draft.
I always thought of you in a historic way, Josh. So it's very cool that you made Pewter Report history as one of the creators of the first trade in Pewter Report mock draft history, and highly recommend to everybody to check out not just the article of the Bucs' second mock draft that Josh and Scott concocted. There was also the podcast where you guys went over it in prime time, and of course you and Adam and Michael Pless from Real Bucs Talk did a live Bucs mock draft on yesterday. So definitely check that out as well. Would love to see Trey Hendrickson. And what you guys did in this recent draft and have done it before is, and I think it's important for the Bucs this year, especially defensively, is just flooding the positions. Don't just find one guy to, fill the position. Do it with several and may the best man win and go from there. And I think the Eagles is a really good example. And again, I'm so sorry to Devin White. I forgot it was his birthday today. I wouldn't have made that joke if it was his birthday. But to the Eagles' credit, they didn't just go with Devin White. They also went with Zach Vaughn. And, they had that competition. And, Vaughn changed positions. But anyway, they went in with more than one option. And Zach Vaughn ended up being what he was. I think the Bucs need to do that at linebacker for sure, and corner and safety as well. So there's so many different ways of really attacking it. And for Trey Palmer, I'm in full agreement. I don't think he's a lock to be on the roster by any means. If the Bucs want to go with the wide receiver early in the draft, maybe not necessarily the first round, but if it's the best player available and they have a guy, I don't hate preparing for the future. Eventually, Mike Evans isn't going to be playing. Chris Godwin, we all think is going to be back. I think it'd be more of a surprise if he's not back, but I don't know. It takes only one team to overpay, and then he's no longer in Tampa Bay. I think a lot of this is just kind of best player available, with obviously understanding that, you got to fix the defense too.
Yep. And I think a lot of people forget, in addition to Vaughn and Devin White, the Eagles also signed Oren Burks, who was with San Francisco the year prior. So that was 3 different players they flooded the position with to complement Nakobe Dean. And 2 of those 3 ended up being huge additions to that room. Obviously, Vaughn had the MVP type season. Burks ended up being the guy that was playing in the playoffs after Nakobe Dean went down with an injury. And provided that steady play next to him. So, I think flooding the positions is a very important aspect to roster building, especially when you're at this point in the win curve.
Another guy we haven't mentioned yet, but he is set to be an available free agent this season. Ton of experience, a couple of championships as well. Justin Reed, the safety for the Kansas City Chiefs, comes from more of an aggressive defense with the blitzing prowess of Steve Spagnuolo. Obviously a different system than Todd Bowles, but still heavy on the blitzing. Josh, any thoughts on Justin Reed? A little bit older than some of the other candidates, but not aging and decrepit by any means either. What type of fit, or do you think is it a fit at all with Reed and Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I think Reed provides that versatility that allows you to move him and Antoine Winfield Jr. around. So he's got extensive experience in the slot. So again, that would allow Todd Bowles to kind of move not only him and Antoine Winfield, but also Tyke Smith. So get kind of creative there. He's consistently been used as a pass rusher over the last few seasons in Steve Spagnuolo's defense. He has double-digit pressures in each of the last 2 seasons, 30 over the last 3 combined. So I think Reed would be stable, but I just worry, this is going to be his 8th season in the league. And so on a team that lacked athleticism last year, especially up the middle, that would be my one concern with Reed is the Bucs would have to feel really good about his movement skills. And I think that there are some concerns there overall. But he's a smart player. He's going to be, you can trust him to be where he's supposed to be. He can still move around the formation a good bit. I think he's probably better suited in a box role, playing closer to the line of scrimmage than, and in a too high kind of shell. But I think that you lose some of that flexibility that we talked about with some of the other players because I wouldn't trust him as the single high safety too often.
Totally fair. I mean, he's not going to get faster. That just kind of happens with age overall. And we know how the Bucs love speed on their defense. They just need to find the right type of speed person. Meets McGee with another super chat. This one of $2. Thank you very much. Says, we did have a 6-foot Sean Murphy Bunting at the slot back in the day. Of course, Sean Murphy Bunting was on that Super Bowl winning team and famously had an interception in, I believe, every game except for the Super Bowl. He just had some big-time plays in the postseason for Tampa Bay, and then his play declined a little bit, and then he went on to Arizona. So Todd Bowles has a certain type when it comes to corner, tall, lanky. However, in the slot, a little bit different, although obviously Sean Murphy Bunting did play that role to a degree.
Yeah, no, it's a great point by Meets McGee. So it could be the Bucs would have to, feel really good about their draft evaluation to make that change. But it's a great point that because Sean Murphy Bunting didn't have a lot of slot experience himself before moving into or before getting drafted by the Bucs. The big thing that would come down to would be the pre-draft interviews with the team. The Tampa Bay was enamored with Sean Murphy Bunting's football IQ. And that was something similar with Tyke Smith that they saw. So if they wanted to make that move, they would have to think that Mello was very, very intelligent to be able to learn that position and apply it, especially in today's modern NFL.
K.E. Hall says, yep, the slot taken care of. A new outside linebacker to pressure and contain from our edge. Grab a corner, Zion, and load up at linebacker. We cooking. Well, I don't think there's any doubt the Bucs are going to spend a little bit more in free agency, at least on some new pieces as well than they have in the past couple of seasons for certain reasons. So they're going to be spending their money. If you want to have a handle on your money the responsible way, there's no better people to work with than Muni Financial.
At Muni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Drew,
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track, so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Muni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
Muni Financial has proudly been serving clients across the country since 1980. They can help you with a number of things like advisory services, legacy and retirement planning, annuity, sales and trading, and more. If you have a kid that plans on going to college, you can set up a college savings account as well. And the cool thing about Muni Financial is they obviously have an office in Colorado. They have an office in Tampa. But if you live in the continental United States, they have offices all around the globe. You could be in the ATL like Josh. You can be over in Wyoming where Josh Allen went to college. You could be in Nebraska where Jason Light is from as well. They have Muni Financials all over the place. So give them a call, get a free consultation, and see how Muni Financial can help you. And just a programming update for the week as well. We're spending all of it on free agency. Tomorrow, we are talking about the top free agents at quarterback. It will be myself and Josh on once again on Tuesday. So very excited for that. Scott returns on Wednesday, where we'll talk about the linebackers. And on Thursday, we are talking about the edge rusher options in free agency. And, of course, we'll talk a little bit about Trey Hendrickson, who's still under contract with the Bengals. And then Friday, we will have a Pewter Insider as well. So those are our podcast topics of the week, going very free agent heavy. And then, of course, we'll be back to the draft the following week with the NFL Combine coming up as well. Josh, were there any other safeties that we haven't talked about yet or haven't gotten into too much that pique your interest? Someone you want to talk about? I know you mentioned Andre Cisco. Anyone else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think Elijah Molden he's by far not like he wouldn't be a signing that jumps off the page where you're like, oh yeah, like this is a star in the making, but very assignment sound, a bit of versatility to him in terms of he can play too high, he can play quarters really well. He can play in the slot, so you can kind of move him around the board a little bit. Always going to be in his spot. Not a fantastic athlete, but he's proven to be effective both in Tennessee and then this past year with Los Angeles with the Chargers. Jeremy Chin is going to be a free agent. I think he's rebuilt some of his value. He was a freak athlete coming out of college. He played pretty well for the Commanders last year. He's big. You can put him in the box. You can blitz him. So, and that's I think the biggest thing that I can kind of say is while there may not, again, I don't think the Bucs are going to be fishing in the Javon Holland waters or anywhere close to the top of the market at this position, but there are so many players with different skill sets. They're not perfect. They're not complete. But if you have a specific path for them within the defense, they can be very effective in a specific role. And I think that's really all the Bucs need at that position while they focus more assets at other positions like linebacker and cornerback. So I think those are kind of the big thoughts and takeaways that I have right now.
No, I appreciate it. They're all really great points. Very different options that the Bucs can go with, and you never know what direction that they will turn to, right? Every single year it seems like we have an idea of who they may go after, and in certain cases that's why Scott hits on the Bucs' best bet almost every single year with certain players. Free agency, you never know. Sometimes you have it right on your radar. Other times, I didn't expect the Bucs to get Bryce Hall, but then they did. And unfortunately, that didn't work out because he broke his leg in the first week of the season. So you can't.
I think we were all surprised when they brought back Jordan Whitehead.
Yeah, that too. I mean, Nick Rapone was thrilled about it.
I have a question for you, Matt.
Yes.
We're not too far away from our battle plans. You care to give the viewers a little bit of a sneak peek? Out of all the players that we've discussed today, who is most on general manager Matt Matera's radar?
Yeah, as far as safety goes, Jeremy Chin is someone I've been looking into a little bit more just because, he comes from Carolina. He's familiar with the the division in general. Not that's the number one reason why you would bring someone in. I just think the Bucs need someone to keep everything afloat. They don't need an overall game changer. I agree with you. They don't need to spend an insane amount of money on one guy that they're already paying an insane amount of money. And obviously it's for the right price, and Antoine Winfield Jr. deserves all the money. I'm not saying the Bucs crazy overpaid by any means, but that middle of the road, not over the top expensive type of option with Jeremy Chin, he's someone I'm certainly looking at. I've been on the record, different position, that I'm a fan of the idea of Khalil Mack, but not for the money he got paid last year. So if the price is willing to come down based on his age and returning him to the home state of Florida where he grew up in Fort Pierce, that interests me. So those are some names for sure. But yes, I have been diving into the battle plan for sure, trying to see how the money works. Not everyone's a cap genius like you are, but certainly trying to make the dollars and cents be accurate for Tampa Bay. But yeah, keep on the lookout for that. How about you? Anything specifically that has caught you in that position?
just from a philosophical standpoint, again, trying to keep the impact at other positions, I really enjoyed watching Jason Pinnock when I went into my deep dive for him, and I think that he would, again, kind of a buy low candidate, somebody you throw in there as part of flooding the position. Maybe a drafted safety to go along with him. Maybe it's Tyke Smith and Christian Izzian competing with him. So I really like Pinnock. I think that would be a guy I would be targeting if I were the Bucs.
Yeah, we shall see who they are interested in. Like we said before, they should kind of just make sure they have insurance at every single position, because we saw how injuries impacted them last season. And if you need proper insurance in several areas, whether it's a car, boat, hurricane insurance, there's nobody better to work with than our friends over at Briar Greaves. If you're a longtime podcast listener, you probably remember the late, great Mark Cook talking about Briar Greaves Insurance. Pewter Report's Scott Reynolds has been a Briar Greaves customer for years, and there simply isn't a better insurance company in the Tampa Bay area. So visit Briar Greaves Insurance to see for yourself. Briar Greaves Insurance is family-owned, and their main goal is helping people. Whether it's home or auto, boating insurance, or business insurance, turn to Briar Greaves and find out why their personal touch and customer service sets them apart. There's no more waiting for a long time to speak with an insurance representative, and they don't even know who you are, and you don't know who they are. Briar Greaves Insurance ensures that you'll have a relationship with your agent. As 2 recent hurricanes have shown all of us that live in the Tampa Bay area, there is a cost to living in paradise. Briar Greaves can help make sure you have the right hurricane and flood insurance to make sure you and your home are protected. So visit BriarGreavesInsurance.com today. That's Briar, B-R-I-E-R, Greaves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S, or call their office today at 813-876-4166. That is 813-876-4166, and tell them that Pewter Report sent you. Just a reminder, tomorrow we will continue our free agency coverage, going with the cornerbacks, followed by the linebackers, and then the edge rushers. So linebackers is Wednesday, edge rushers is Thursday. We're obviously putting more of an emphasis on the defensive side, because that is where the Bucs need help the most. In the meantime, if you're not already doing so, please follow us on our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment below. So that'll do it for us on today's show. For Josh Capo, I'm Matt Matera, saying thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.